U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is putting together the pieces of his new administration, starting with his pick to lead his White House team. Susie Wiles is one of two campaign managers who helped the Republican win the election. The 67-year-old will be the first woman to serve as White House Chief of Staff. It's the first in a flurry of expected staff announcements ahead of Mr. Trump's inauguration in January next year. Reports suggest he could tap on familiar faces from his previous administration. The president-elect is solidifying his mandate with another electoral victory. The battleground state of Nevada is the latest to be called in his favor, flipping to red from blue in the last election. Well, this gives Mr. Trump 6 more electoral college votes. That brings the total to 301 for Mr. Trump and 226 for outgoing Vice President Kamala Harris. Arizona, which is also another swing state, is yet to be called, but 3/4 of the votes tallied so far show Mr. Trump in the lead. In Congress races, the Senate has already been flipped to Republican control, but the party is gaining more ground and is reportedly set to gain a seat in Pennsylvania. They've flipped 3 seats so far. That brings the total tally to 52 versus 44. They're also closing in on control of the House of Representatives, adding 1 more seat, and that brings the tally to 220 versus 212 for the Democrats. The final result may take a few more days, as more than 20 races, including 11 in California, have yet to be called. When we're joined by Simon Marks live from Washington, D.C. Simon, we're nearing the end of a remarkable week in U.S. politics, an election in which the turnout of voters mattered significantly. What's your assessment of those particular numbers?
Well, look, Wei Su, I mean, there's no question that this was an election in which Americans wanted to participate, but they participated at slightly lower levels than the record turnout that the United States saw back in 2020. Nonetheless, they did turn out. I mean, it's almost close to that 2020 record figure. I mean, the thing that is so fascinating about these turnout figures is that for the first time, turnout by independents topped the turnout by Democrats. Remember in the United States that when you register to vote, you're asked if you want to register with a particular party or be an independent. So you can register as a Democrat, register as a Republican, or register as an independent. And this year, for the first time, independents participating in the election were of a greater number than registered Democrats. And the real conundrum for Democrats as they lick their wounds and try to understand the numerous issues that led to the drubbing that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz experienced on Tuesday night is the evaporation of Democrat supporters. If you go back to 2020, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, when they were running for election together, secured the support of 81 million Americans. This year, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz secured the support of only 66 million Americans. So somewhere the Democrats have lost 14 or 15 million voters. And you think, well, maybe they've all gone to the Republicans, but they haven't, because Donald Trump's number of voters is very close to the same number that he won back in 2020. He was 75 million in 2020, maybe 73, 74 million this year. So the Democrats have to understand where all their supporters have gone, why they decided to sit this election out. And that, I think, is the biggest issue facing them as this momentous week in the United States comes to an end.
Well, Simon, we'll be picking apart these results for a long time yet. But meanwhile, a so-called staffing war as we look ahead to Mr. Trump picking his new cabinet. We've heard Susie Wiles there, White House Chief of Staff. What's the situation like for the other appointees at his Florida base?
Well, it's reported that there is a bit of a frenzy taking place at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, which would not be unusual under circumstances like this one, because, of course, Donald Trump is facing calls from a whole load of people, many of them Republicans, but not all of them, who supported him during the campaign and helped pull him across the finishing line. And those people, of course, include Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who abandoned his own third party run for the presidency to endorse Donald Trump's campaign. Now, the appointment of Susie Wiles as the incoming White House chief of staff is the first key piece of evidence we have had that Donald Trump is absolutely determined to surround himself this time with die-hard loyalists, proven supporters of him and his Make America Great Again movement. He's not going to try and find common cause with the sorts of people that he brought into senior positions in the White House 4 years ago. We're still keeping a very close eye on Rick Grinnell, the former U.S. ambassador to Germany, as a possible future Secretary of State. Also in the running for that, reportedly, Republican Senator Bill Hagerty, who used to be the United States ambassador to Japan, also a possible consideration for Secretary of State. But there's a host of cabinet positions and non-cabinet positions, of course, for Donald Trump to fill. Thousands of appointments have to be made over the course of the next few weeks, and that is falling to Donald Trump himself, backed up by a transition team that he actually created even before the election. So they started work on this weeks ago. Now the rubber is really hitting the road.